Welcome back to our Line Opinion panel. Staffers at homeless shelters called 911 more than 1,100 times for help with runaways and children suffering from mental health crises during a recent 3.5-year period. Now, many of them were foster kids. We learned those numbers last week in a story from Ed Williams, published by Searchlight New Mexico and ProPublica. Now, the state has promised repeatedly that the Children, Youth, and Families Department would stop housing troubled kids in places that can't help them. We've covered that here at the table many times, except in extraordinary circumstances, according to them, but it's still happening anyway. Mr. Williams reveals that police are often left to pick up the pieces. The quotes he gathered from officers are striking. Many of them know they aren't equipped to help these kids either. And Tom, do you find it extraordinary to hear police themselves criticizing and questioning a system that continually brings kids back to these shelters? When you're hearing ground zero reports from police officers, that's got to wake some folks up, it would seem to me. How did you take what you saw?
And there are a lot of items in the Searchlight story that definitely caught my attention. By means of disclosure, I've done work with CYFD on topics related to this, but these items, my thoughts are all my own.
Appreciate it.
And so, I think what Mr. Williams did was he brought to light items that need to, it's kind of like a shake me to wake me kind of thing.
Yes.
And that's definitely the negative side. It's not a highlight reel, not in the least, but it's something that it's one aspect that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
One of the underlying issues is really on the need for foster parents, resource parents,
Yes.
and really for New Mexico to get involved.
Yeah.
But when you look at that, it's very difficult. And for the normal New Mexican,
Right.
I think we look at that and we're just shocked.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, how can we treat others like this? But you know what? It's not an easy fix. It's
that's a good point,
CYFD is not Department of Tourism. It is not Economic Development Department. It is we have to have different expectations and of what success looks like.
That's a very good point, that last point there. Just on Tom's point, Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Amy Dudowitz, who you never read, quoted in an interview, quote, "It is a frustration and it is a huge concern for those of us that are answering those calls, like, is this the best response that we have to offer," end quote. And Michael, again, the frustration coming out of law enforcement people should be a signal, it would seem to me, to policymakers that we're just not doing enough here. How are you hearing what these law enforcement folks are saying?
Well, if law enforcement needs help, then something's really wrong.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
and they're not the most appropriate to be addressing this issue.
Right.
What it points out to me is a failure of a system to really to address the issues of foster children.
That's right.
And again, I'm going to circle back to what I said earlier in our conversation, was that I would imagine that many of these children are coming from families that we would define as dysfunctional,
Right.
and having a host of issues. Some of those issues, I would imagine, are parents who are not functioning in their roles as positive support and parenting, and I would imagine many of them have been impacted
Right.
by alcohol and substance abuse, as
right.
well as drugs.
That's right.
And until we really go back to the origin of what is causing this problem that ripples across our systems,
Right.
till we go to the basis of that and address that issue, we're going to continue to have this fallout.
That's right.
And nothing's going to change it.
Act like it's a fire department running around putting
Right.
out fires.
Right.
Exactly right. Tom mentioned some other things, Giovanna, that was in the article that I thought was interesting as well. Some of the police officers, they have to stay with kids for hours, unable to respond to other calls. You can't be having that. Is this a resource problem? Is that what's going on here?
So I think there are resource issues for sure, but I think what Michael said is really key, which is that it's a systems problem.
Right.
And so, and just disclosure as well, I've worked with CYFD regional managers in a different perspective from my work in supporting women and professionals in the workplace to manage their stress in the workplace. So, but all of my opinions are my own. And so I've seen it from that perspective. There's no question. I mean, the people that work in CYFD are caring, people
Right.
who a lot of them have social work backgrounds. I mean, I think this blaming those CYFD people is the wrong answer, and it really is a systems issue, because
Yeah.
if you have your leadership, which is the governor and the CYFD leadership that she put in place, who have all the right intentions and they understand the root causes and the social determinants of health and all of the things, and then you still see the police sitting with this teenager
Right.
who is bound by the feet
That's right.
and the hands, and it's horrifying.
The
and this-
helmet on to
Right,
keep the person
and
from
the
injuring
police
themselves.
are sitting there for hours. Clearly, there's a disconnect with the system,
Yeah.
and so I would look there
Yep.
for sure. And
Yep.
that's not an easy fix.
Good
Clearly,
point there. Another interesting point, guys. Attorney General Raul Torres wanted to create a new civil rights division to sue the state on behalf of children harmed by government neglect and incompetence. But the governor pocket vetoed a bill that would have made it happen. Tom, why do you think the governor was so bristled at the idea of additional oversight of CYFD? Or is the issue, as she hinted, perhaps it was better put in another already existing agency that we can manage the money and kind of get to something? But we have neither at this point. So.
Well, I think you have some other types of progress. You know, with respect to the Attorney General, he was able to bring to light a conversation that there's a need for a civil rights division within his office. So that I think was a good positive move, because it created awareness. Second, in the midst of the legislative session, the governor announced, in the midst of 30 different bills to reshape CYFD in some form or fashion, that CYFD is going to be going under her own microscope.
Right.
When you look at the origins of CYFD, you have to go back to 1991 and Alice King. And there were 5 different departments that all had different pieces of the child welfare reform. And so they brought all of those together, and each cabinet secretary has helped move the ball just a little bit further. We have Heather Wilson, who did it. You also have a Monique Jacobson, and now you have Judge Vigil. Everybody is moving that ball forward ever so slightly. And again, you can't make huge steps. These are all little baby steps that you have to make.
Michael, let me read you a quote here. A spokesperson for the governor on the Raul Torres idea said the bill would, quote, add barriers for child victims to access resources and create confusion among entities already doing this work, end quote. Do you buy that? Mr. Torres is trying to funnel this all into one place. Why would the issue be that it would be dispersed? It's interesting.
Well, unless there's something that's not stated, it would seem to me that anything you would do to centralize some sort of control or activity would be a step in the right direction. I think that this may be something that's too close to the governor on some level, and so that might be have something to do with why she's looking askance at it maybe.
Please, go
I
ahead.
would say that she probably wants the opportunity to address it within her reforms and things that she announced at CYFD, rather than giving it over to the Attorney General's office. Civil Rights Division idea that is a good idea and works in other states, but primary goal is to look at what the government is doing wrong. And I would think that the governor is probably thinking, well, let me try to do it first based on what I've said I want to do.
Right.
And also,
And she, interrupt you for a quick second,
Yeah.
Giovanna, the governor also said the AG already is empowered to take on these kinds of cases.
Right.
If he wants to. That's an important data point there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a good point too, Jean. And I would say that was one of her main points, was that, look, you don't need legislation to do this work. You can go ahead and do it anyway. And it's also interesting that apparently there was no funding in the bill
Right.
anyway.
Well,
so it's not like
that's our
he's
way.
missing any money. I know. It's not like he's going to be lacking the funds that he would have had
Right.
to do it.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Just a minute, just under a minute here, Tom. You mentioned interesting. Secretary Vigil took over in 2022 after Brian Blaylock resigned. Remember that, guys? We talked about that here. Following that transparency scandal, where he asked all the CYFD employees to communicate via an encrypted messaging app. But Ed Williams' story is just the latest in a series of exposed, failures at CYFD. lots of them in the foster system. What stops this at the end of the day?
Define this, because I heard two or
That's
three
a good
different
point.
things.
That's
So
good. This being the overall CYFD, is it more leadership, more oversight, a total overhaul?
Well, you know,
what should we be advocating for here?
I think the department is set up to advocate for kids.
Yeah.
And it's as Ed Williams's items, his story pointed out, there are a variety of different issues that need to be addressed in that process. The cooperation and integration with law enforcement, and is just one aspect of those.
Yeah, good points there. Thanks again to our line panel as always this week. Great stuff. Be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics the line covered on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages. And catch any episode you may have missed on the PBS app or your Roku or Smart TV.